Okay, so this is going to be a pretty wild episode, and just so you know, you heard it here first. Being a smaller channel in the grand scheme of things, larger channels probably will pick up on this as time goes on and probably act like it's their information, but you heard it here first. This is what I firmly believe is going to happen with the N64 Classic. JT. Many of you may have already heard about the interview Kotaku had with Reggie Fils-Aimé, the head of Nintendo America, and how he announced to them that they have no plans of making the N64 Classic at the end of 2018. And nobody really knows why that is. It's just Nintendo said it's not in their current plans to be doing so. Maybe down the road they'd be interested in pursuing it, but right now it's not on their radar. And I looked into that and I was like, that's pretty interesting, because they released the NES Classic 2 years ago around Christmas time, the SNES Classic 1 year ago around Christmas time, and a lot of people expected the N64 Classic to be around now, and it's nowhere to be found, especially with the PlayStation Classic coming out, and they thought that that would be a prime opportunity for Nintendo to go head to head and compete just like the old days with it. But people are thinking very two-dimensionally with this situation, and when it comes to Nintendo, you really have to think three-dimensionally with how they handle business decisions and selling consoles and toys that they make. They don't just play checkers, they play chess. And with the N64 Classic, unfortunately for those of you who are looking forward to Nintendo releasing the mini console, I firmly believe it will never happen. But the N64 Classic will exist as a game. Stay with me here. It's not going to look like that. It's going to look like that. Yes, that's right. It is going to be basically all the games on the N64 Classic on one of the cartridges for the Nintendo Switch. And it's going to be sold like the Nintendo Labo in a bigger box, coming with the actual game. Not that ridiculous though. Something more apt to explain what I'm talking about would be more like... Let me make a big mess behind me, because I don't care. I'll fix that later. Super Smash Bros. On the Wii U that came with a controller. And Super Smash Bros. Ultimate coming out for the Nintendo Switch that's coming with the controller as well. Don't you think there's a possibility that Nintendo will release the N64 controller in a box with the game? It's so obvious. This is what they're going to do. I can't believe no one's talking about this. I was laying down in bed the other day and I was like, holy crap, I just had an epiphany. This is what Nintendo's doing with the N64 Classic. They already have the patent renewed for the controller. People thought that's why they were actually moving forward with the N64 Classic. But ultimately, what it ended up being, in my opinion, is the controller is being patented to be able to play N64 games on the Switch from a cartridge. It makes perfect sense. Otherwise, why would they make an entirely new mini console when the emulation isn't perfect? It costs a ton of money to make these systems, and they don't even perfectly emulate the software. When people already have the Switch and its processing power is there, they paid the money for it, why not take advantage of that and just be able to use it from that? Because at the end of the day, with the N64, to play the games, all you really need is the N64 controller. This is what made the N64 what it was. And with that, if they make one that connects with the Nintendo Switch and come out with a game of a compilation of, we'll say, 20 titles attached to the cartridge, there's your N64 Classic. It will help them sell Switches. People who already have Switches will go out in droves to buy this thing to be able to play their N64 games with the N64 controller. Hell, they could even call it the N64 Classic Collection. It's that simple, and honestly, I can't believe it took me so long to think about this. But that's what Nintendo's going to do with the N64 Classic. They're not going to come out with a mini system of it, because it's already been proven that the actual technology to run these ROMs is going to be way more expensive than what it would cost to actually sell them, and it wouldn't be cost effective, not to mention, like I said, the emulation issues that they're having with the games. It would just make more sense to run it on a virtual console via a cart. And if you don't believe me, what actually made me think of this is a Nintendo shareholders meeting back in 2017 in July, where they talked about looking into the option of a virtual console catalog sold as a compilation on carts together. Nintendo themselves said they're looking into this. People forgot about it. I did not. And this is proof right here that Nintendo gives little hints. They drop breadcrumbs along the way on what they're going to be doing moving forward and how they're going to be approaching situations. And I think if you piece everything together that we know right now, it is obvious that Nintendo's next step is to sell the N64 Classic Mini as a game cartridge with a controller, and they can sell controllers separately for multiplayer games. It just makes sense. Not to mention, like I said, when Reggie was interviewed, asked about the NES Classic and SNES Classics and why those were sold, he said it was basically because the Wii U was winding down in sales and they were trying to ramp up for Switch sales, so those fell right into the middle of finding something to sell in the meantime. Right now, Nintendo is solely focused on selling more Switches, so not only would people be able to play these N64 games on the Switch they already own, but prospective buyers would have another reason to want to go out and buy the Switch. It's almost like looking back at the Sega Genesis and having the adapter add-on for the Sega CD or the 32X, or to a lesser extent, because it didn't come out here, the N64 having the 64 disk drive in Japan. This is basically a modern day add-on to the system, being able to sell a unique controller specific to the games in the collection and only work on the Nintendo Switch. It just makes sense from a sales perspective, from a business perspective, from a customer support perspective, everything that I could possibly think of. Nintendo would be crazy to try to pursue anything else. And as much as I personally would love to have a cute little mini N64 Classic in my house, it doesn't make sense with the technology that's currently available, which is why I am so sure Nintendo will be moving forward with the N64 Classic as a compilation cart for the Nintendo Switch. Do you think I'm crazy? Or am I onto something? Anyways, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. I'd be very interested to hear your theories on the Nintendo 64 Classic. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a good one.